We're good.
I call this meeting to order. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory land of the Anishinaabe, the Ottawa, and Mississauga peoples. Confirmation of the agenda that the Council of the Township of North hereby accept the agenda for September 13th, 2021 Council meeting as presented. Do I have a mover? Kevin Faulkner is moving. Rick McBurney is seconding. All in favor? Carries. We'd like to go to, before we go any further, the audio isn't working to the council, so we have quite a few in the audience. So if we could just speak up. If you folks can't hear us, just say something and we'll yell louder and louder and louder. So thank you very much for that. Disclosure of pecuniary interests. Seeing none. Public comments. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to speak to an item of business that's on the agenda. You may have up to 2 minutes. If anyone out there would like to speak to anything coming up, if you just want to stand up, give us your name, this is your opportunity to talk about it. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Nathaniel.
You can come up to the podium here too.
Sure. Like on the stage?
Yep.
Great.
Is that? Yeah.
Hi, my name's Nathania. I'm here to speak about the BIA's
Nathania, sorry to bother you. Could we have your last name too? We need it for the record.
Barnett, B-A-R-N-E-T-T.
Thank you.
I'm from Goderich and I work in Blythe. I'm here to speak on the Blythe BIA's motion to review township street names. I'm here today because my great-grandfather moved to this country in between the world wars, and he fled persecution of his people. My great-grandfather was Romani, and I'm going to be blunt. I am here in honor of his legacy. Gypsy Lane is really upsetting to me. The word gypsy is a slur, and while that is not well known in Canada, it does not negate the fact that it is and has always been derogatory. And I don't think a word that was used by concentration camp officers has any business being a street name. Frankly, sorry, I'm a little nervous.
No, take your time.
I don't think it has any business being a street name, especially in this community that has always prided itself on being welcoming and open to outsiders, immigrants, and tourists. This street name is not welcoming. It is upsetting. It makes me uncomfortable, and frankly, it makes me embarrassed when speaking with tourists. And makes me embarrassed when speaking with tourists. And while I know that this situation did not arise out of malice, but a lack of knowledge, particularly about the Romani people and the history of the word gypsy, my being here today and the BIA's motion to review these street names has made this council and this community aware that the name is unacceptable. And I think by doing nothing now, it is a failure of our community. So I am urging this council to please make the right decision and review this street name as well as others in the county. And I look forward to being part of that process if possible. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else down there that would like to step up and have a say about something? If you could just come up then, sir. I seen a hand being pointed over this way.
Yeah.
I'm Rick McElroy, and I'm not going up there because I can't get
You're good,
up.
Rick. You're good. Speak up.
I have a question, and it might be redundant, but we travel quite a bit. We've been on every continent in the world. And to my knowledge, I have never met a gypsy. And I just wonder, how many people in here have ever talked to or met a gypsy? 2.
You don't use that word, it's Romani.
Well, it's a gypsy as far as I know, because like I said, I have never met any.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is not a debate. It is a comment. So you go ahead, sir.
All right.
Yeah, please. And just address the me.
Up here.
Thanks.
All right. No, it's just a question that I was wondering about, like people twisted and stuff like that. And I wonder if they're not going, the pendulum has swung too far the other way. Like if they start changing names all over the place, there's always going to be a name that is going to upset some people. And everybody that has to change their addresses and stuff like that, it's no small feat. And I'm just wondering if the cost of it's to make someone feel better, if it's really going to be worth the cost and the effort if you don't have anybody that's actually coming forward and complaining. Now, obviously, we have people in here that are prepared to do that, but I think there should be something on the other side to say, is it worth it? When you figure the cost of changing the maps, the names, all the people who live on it, the people who are making these excuses don't live on that street, so henceforth, they don't have a pound of flesh in it. But the people who live on it, who have to change everything, including their street address, their deeds, whatever, it's a big deal if you've never had to do it. I mean, you're always going to find someone who's going to be upset about something. But I'm just wondering if they speak for the masses, or if they just are one of the 15 people that show up here that's going to make a decision for hundreds of people and it costs 1,000. It was just a question I was asking.
Yep. Thank you very much,
Thank
Rick.
you.
Yep, thanks, Rick. You want to say something? Yep. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Ray. That's Ray Hallahan, by the way.
We are on the agenda, are we not?
Yes.
So we can address this when our time comes up,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Paul. Yep, go ahead, Paul. Doug, sorry, my apologies.
I just want a clarification, when it comes to discussion about development charges, is there going to be public input at that time?
Yeah, there's a public comment section during that public meeting, Doug.
Okay, so I will wait till then.
Go ahead, and I'm not sure of your name, so if you could let us know.
Mary Beth Dixon.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to have a time to comment about the zoning bylaw amendment, or should I do that now?
Yep, there's also an opportunity for public comment during the public meeting for the zoning bylaw amendment.
So I should wait until later?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, this is my first town council ever, so I just wanted to clarify, there will be time to speak for every agenda section, so we don't have to get our words out now if we would like to speak to the Gypsy Lane situation later.
Yep, no, to provide clarity, the development charges, there's a public meeting, and the zoning bylaw amendment, there's a public meeting. Any other comments, unless you're scheduled to be on the agenda, would be during these 2-minute public comment section.
Okay, I would like to take a chance to speak then.
Yes, and
My name is Frances Horvath. I have lived in Goderich not very long. I have worked in Blythe in the summers and stayed with my lovely wife and her family. And from the moment I met them, I was re-educated about things like gypsy, saying anything like that. I would like to also remind everybody here that not too far away in Toronto, the whole city is taking over $1 million task of renaming Dundas Street, Dundas Station. All of the businesses are going to have to change their names as well because Dundas was a pro-slaver and purposefully made it harder to end slavery in North America. So if they can do that in Toronto and it's a multi-million-dollar issue that they're willing to undergo, I would urge places like North Huron to maybe consider doing the same when it's a smaller scale and it does hurt people. I worked at Blythe Festival and it was embarrassing to have to say, oh yeah, such and such down Gypsy Lane, the church is down Gypsy Lane. It's a slur. It felt dirty in my mouth and it felt dirty knowing that people I love are constantly hurt by it. And there are wrong people in this town. There are wrong people all over the place. And there are tourists that are coming who are probably wrong or know somebody who's wrong. And it's really hurtful to them too. So it's not just the 15 people showing up here. It's for the greater good of the wrong community who have been historically marginalized. I guess that's all I had to say.
thank you very kindly. Anyone else? Yes. And again, give us your name.
I'm Margaret McEnroy, and I was one of the ones, I've written a letter to you that I saw that there was over 500 people had signed a petition that you're not accepting tonight because of technicalities. But it is true, they have decided they're spending all that money in Toronto, but as a taxpayer, I'm upset if you guys are going to spend money to change names. And I think we have to look at it that way too. Is it really worth it to spend all that money? There were things that Dundas did, or Ryerson did, or Sir John A. Macdonald, but look at all the good things that they did, but we can't remember them. They're just taking those names away now. We were always referred to them as gypsies. It was a proud name. My aunt used to tell me that they came to Cranbrook, where she grew up, and she was so excited when the gypsies came to town because the kids all wanted to run away with them because their children didn't go to school, right? So it was an honor for that they called them that. They were never told that we're Romanian or whatever. And we were all immigrants, and every immigrant likely has some slur against their name. And we have to finally come to the fact that we don't have the money to correct these things. And as I said, to take Sir John A. Macdonald's name off things and everything like that, or the Queen. Now they're talking about Queen Street and King Street because they don't like the monarchy. Like, it's going to be an endless thing. So, thank you.
Thank you very kindly. Anyone else? Raymond?
Well, I guess now that everybody spoke on it, so I'm representing the group, so.
We're going to have you as part of, a little later, as part of the actually delegation.
Yeah,
Okay, right?
Thanks.
And then, yeah, and we won't be making a decision at that time. We're having a conversation because there'll be a conversation a little later in the meeting, which everybody will hear to see what the council have to say. Yes.
May I add a short addendum to what I was going to say, or what I said earlier? I would just like to suggest, perhaps you wouldn't name a street Faggot Lane, or Dyke Boulevard, or N-word Street, and that is what Gypsy Lane is. It is a slur. We have been telling, people are saying it is a slur, and people are continuing to say it in regards to the Roma people. And Romani has nothing to do with Romanians. It is a very marginalized group that has traveled the world out of sheer need to survive. Thank you.
Thank you very kindly. Anyone else? Not seeing any, we're going to get on with our agenda now. And I want to thank everybody for speaking up. That's what democracy is all about. I couldn't see everybody for the light shining in my eye, that's what. Okay, consent agenda that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopts consent agenda 5.1.1 to 5.1.2, and further the Council of the Township of North Huron receives consent items 5.1.3 to 5.3.5 for information purposes. Do I have a mover? I have Anita. Do I have a seconder? I have Paul. Before I call, does anybody want to bring anything out for conversation? Anita and then Paul. Rick, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Reeve Bailey. I would like to draw your attention to 5.3.1. As of today, Dr. Musa is a practicing physician in Wingham, and I think it would be nice to send him a welcome letter from North Huron Council or the township.
Very good idea. Do we need a movement for that or mover for that? Or anything? We can just do that on information purposes?
I have a note.
Okay.
We'll address it. Yep.
Yes, we will. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ricky?
Yes, Reeve, thank you. In regards to 5.2.1, bills and accounts, I got a question in regards to the Public Works salt shed and the fire hall. There's a check there for Dawn Construction at $30,000. Is that the stone here? Is that something new, or is that all the last one?
Donna, are you here?
Yes.
Sorry, Donna. Do you have an answer for that, or you need time to find an answer for that?
Yes, Jamie isn't here tonight. She could tell you if it's the last payment or not.
so I can check with Jamie tomorrow.
Okay.
And if you get back to all of council, I would appreciate that. Okay. Anyone else? Not seeing any. I have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? Carries. Public meetings and hearings and delegations. Ray Hallahan, Concerned Citizen Group, opposition to the Blythe BIA request to rename Gypsy Lane. Raymond, it's your turn now. And if you don't mind coming up, Ray, I appreciate it.
Good evening, everyone. Reeve Bailey, council and staff. My name is Ray Hallahan, and I was asked to represent and present a concern from a citizen group in the village of Blythe regarding the proposed street name change, and that street being Gypsy Lane. Talking is not one of my giving a speech, not one of my strong points, and I think a few of you already know that. So I wrote something out here. These citizens and ratepayers had, through our local citizen newspaper, a report learned about the possible street name change of Gypsy Lane. Some of the groups do not have a computer, so rely on our good local newspaper for news. These citizens have not had any contact from council as to the proposed change. These citizens, for the following reasons, are opposed to any name changes. Ree Brumley, Nellie Mason, Betty Hazelwood, and Dorothy Johnson had done the footwork of a petition, and Margaret McElroy has done some writing to stop the proposed name change. The petition was only intended for the citizens and ratepayers of Blythe signature, but many area citizens also wish to add their signatures. Petition signatures have risen to over 550 very quickly. As we're all aware, this change comes with a cost to the ratepayers through staff time, whether it is office staff or manual labor, to change signs, the cost of purchasing such, and changing 911 numbers and mapping. One must realize the changing of addresses can be very stressful and sometimes costly for these citizens. A few of the changes needed to be done are driver's license, vehicle ownerships, health cards, dentists, lawyers, insurances, as well as government offices, to mention only a few. It's important to know that the group, under no circumstances, are meaning to offend the Roma people and respect their culture. The next reason for opposing the name changes is history. I've been a long-time member of the Huron-Pioneer Thrashers Association for 60 years, and note their mandate is to preserve history. I personally have signed the petition to support the opposition of the name change. It cannot go without saying our famous Blythe Festival Theatre has written and prepared plays recognizing our local history and might someday even give tribute by means of a play to the special culture and their contribution to the Blythe history. History is important for so many reasons, so let us keep the street named Gypsy Lane. If there are any questions, I will try to answer them, or some of our delegates here tonight. We very much want to thank you for your time and consideration. Respectfully, Concerned Citizen Group. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hallahan. We're going to save debate on this till later on because it is, again, it's a second item in the agenda a little further down. So we'll do the debating back then unless there's a special or particular question you'd ask Mr. Allen.
Can't hear you.
Oh, we're going to save this for a little later in the program because we're actually going to debate this again in the section where we can and cannot pass laws. So we're not going to have a debate about it right now amongst the councillors. Okay? So stick around for about an hour. Or we'll let you know. It'll be in the Blythe paper. Okay. Next up on the agenda is development charges public meeting. As per the Development Charges Act 1997-27, Section 12.1, before passing the the development charge bylaw, the council shall. Before I go any further, I'm going to have Lisa Courtney please come up and speak to this.
Thank you, Reed. I should have used the computer. The clicker works? Maybe.
I'm not sure.
If it doesn't, we'll blame me. I think I have a black thumb when it comes to these things.
Is there a mouse behind the laptop, Lisa?
Yeah. Oh, yep. Jeez. Thank you. Tonight we're here for the development charges public meeting. I apologize for having the wrong date on my slide here, as we were tornadoed out last week, and I appreciate staff giving me some harbor in the storm. It was a little scarier down in Point Clark than it was here, so I was glad I was here instead of Point Clark. So my name is Lisa Courtney. I'm a planner with VM Ross and Associates in Goderich. We've been working with staff on the development charges update. The development charges process happens every 5 years because a development charge bylaw only has a life expectancy of 5 years. After that 5 years, you have to go through the process and implement a new development charges bylaw. I think it was my first time around PowerPoint. Sorry, Carson.
Oh, that's
You don't suppose I'm in the way.
There we go. Ah, that's the trick. Thank you, Ashley. So I'm going to provide an overview of the development charges and then the development charge process that we have to go through, and then get into the actual 2021 development charge background study and what the calculated charges are. So development charges are a tool that's available to municipalities to help them recover costs associated with providing services and infrastructure that benefit new growth. So you can collect development charges for capital works that you put in place, as well as capital works that you have previously put in place that benefit future growth. The idea of development charges is that growth pays for its share, so that your existing taxpayers aren't paying for oversizing infrastructure or for services that benefit future growth. It's important to keep in mind with development charges is that you cannot collect development charges related to operating or maintenance costs. So you have to replace a snowplow because it's broken. That's not something you can collect development charges for. If you need a new snowplow because you have more roads that you need to plow snow on, then you could collect for it through development charges. Oops. So you collect development charges from new residential and non-residential development, and your development charges are based on a series of projects that are laid out in the development charge background study, and you're collecting for the costs of those projects that are attributed to future growth. There's lots of rules around development charges. It's set out in the Development Charges Act, and it basically tells us how we can collect, what we can collect, and how we calculate development charges. Any money you collect for development charges has to go towards development charge projects. You can't just use this money anywhere you like. It has to go towards the development charge projects. My job is to calculate your development charges, and then it's up to council to decide what to charge the development charges at. So I calculate the ceiling, and if council wishes, they can choose a lower amount to charge at, but they cannot choose a higher amount to charge at. So North Huron has had development charges in place since 2011. The last time we went through this process was 2016. Currently, you have different development charges for your different wards. That's Wingham, Blythe, and East Wawanosh. And that's a function of the different services that are available in those different areas. So in Wingham and Blythe, you have water and wastewater services. In East Wawanosh, those services are not available, and you're not providing wastewater services to those folks, so you cannot collect development charges for wastewater in East Wawanosh. It's about making sure we're collecting fair amounts where the services are provided. Currently, you only collect residential development charges. Back in 2016, council at the time decided they were not going to collect non-residential development charges. There are other municipalities who follow a similar avenue of thought where they don't collect non-residential development charges, but there are also other communities who do collect non-residential development charges. In Huron County, Goderich is an example of that. They do collect non-residential development charges. Your current bylaw is set to expire in October, so that's what we're working towards, is passing a new bylaw ahead of that. So there's quite a process before you can implement a new development charge bylaw. You have to first complete a development charge background study. And the purpose of this background study is to evaluate capital works projects that benefit future growth, determine how they fit within the rules, if they fit within the rules, forecast growth, and then calculate what those development charges are. We have to make that background study available for public review, and we also have to have a public meeting. We also have to draft up a bylaw so that folks can have a review of that bylaw ahead of time. And then once we have gone through those steps, council can then pass a new development charge bylaw. Once the bylaw is passed, it does start the clock on a 40-day appeal period. Okay. So these are your current development charges for, I just pulled out the single and semi-detached unit charge. So you currently collect development charges in Wingham, Blythe, and East Wawanosh, as I said. And as I said, they do have different development charges. So you can see in Wingham, there's a development charge for sanitary sewage services. And then in Blythe, there's a development charge for water. So in Wingham, if I were to build a house tomorrow and stop by Kirk's office and ask for a building permit, he would say I would owe development charges of just over $5,000 for my single detached home. In Blythe, that charge is just a little over $2,500. And then East Wawanosh, it's a little over $1,600. A little reminder again, currently North Huron does not collect non-residential development charges. And back in 2016, when we were doing this process, the calculated charge in Wingham was closer to $8,000, but the council at the time made the decision to reduce the Wingham development charge to $5,000. So just keep that in mind when you see the future numbers or the calculated numbers. This slide summarizes the projects that are included in the 2016 development charges. So we have the Northwest Trunk Sewer Replacement Project. There was the new well in Blythe that was built, the Public Works Facility, or a new Public Works Facility, excuse me, firefighter outfitting, parkland development, and then a number of growth-related studies that are currently being collected for. So we reviewed this list with staff, went over the master plan that BM Ross recently completed, identifying what future infrastructure projects may be needed related to water and wastewater, and came up with a list of projects to be included in the 2021 development charges. So the boxes that are in blue are existing projects that we're carrying forward from 2016, and then the orange yellow boxes are new projects. So this includes the external servicing to Hutton Heights, so that's road, water, wastewater, and stormwater servicing. We also have the Wingham standpipe. So that's the replacement of the Wingham standpipe, and that's being included because it will be built bigger to accommodate future growth. So we're collecting for a portion of that project. We also have an additional snowplow, a multi-use court, trail development, and daycare as a new service category that's been included in this round of development charges. So there are a number of projects that are charged across the municipality because the benefit is to everyone in the municipality. So that includes the Public Works Facility, your snowplow, parkland development, trail development, as well as daycare. And then there are other projects that have specific benefiting areas, so we only collect for them in the areas that they benefit. So that would include in Wingham, the Northwest Trunk Sewer Project, the Josephine Street Pumping Station. Larger pumps are needed in that station as a result of growth. The Wingham standpipe. In Blythe, an additional well is needed. And again, this is a function of growth. And additional pumps are needed in the sewage pumping station. So in Blythe, you know, you've kind of coasted along on your existing infrastructure fairly well, but through the work that was done as part of the master plan, it was identified that you've kind of reached that point where you now need to look at larger pumps in that sewage pumping station to accommodate future growth. So that's something that would be collected through development charges. And then we are suggesting that a new service area is needed to reflect the services being provided in Hutton Heights. And in that area, you would collect for the external sewage servicing costs, water servicing costs, stormwater servicing, as well as the Wingham standpipe, because there is capacity in the Wingham standpipe or in the future Wingham standpipe that will be for Hutton Heights. So this slide shows what the lands that would be included in the Hutton Heights development charge service area. It's this kind of pinky line that would be, if I were to build a new home in that area, I would pay those development charges. So based on those projects, these are the calculated development charges for Wingham we'll start with. So you can see we collect for sanitary sewage, water, public works, parks and recreation, daycare, and administration services in Wingham. So for a single detached home, the development charges would increase to about $9,600 per unit. And if we think about this in terms of the cost of a house, if we were able to build a house for $350,000, the development charges would make up about 2.89% of the cost of that home. In Blythe, we're now also collecting for sanitary sewage services, where previously in 2016 we were not, and that's a function of having to put in larger pumps in that sewage pumping station. We also are collecting for water, that's the well, as well as public works, park and recreation services, daycare, and administration. And as a result of those projects being added into the development charges, the Blythe development charge has increased to something similar to Wingham's, about $9,500 for a single detached unit. In East Wawanosh, we collect for Public Works, Park and Recreation, Daycare, and Administration, and the calculated development charges for a single detached unit in East Wawanosh would be just a little over $5,000 per unit. And then for Hutton Heights, we have all the categories being collected for. So sanitary sewage, water, stormwater, roads, public works, park and recreation, daycare and administration. And this is, again, reflects the cost to bring servicing to the Hutton Heights area. So for a new detached home in Hutton Heights, the development charges would be around just a little under $22,000. We also looked at what the non-residential development charges would be. As part of the development charge background study process, we do have to calculate, what the residential component of the costs are and what the non-residential components are. So in Wingham, you would pay a non-residential development charge of about $11.62 per square meter. So if we were to build, let's say, 1,000 square foot commercial unit, your development charge on that would be just a little over $1,000. And for reference, when I say non-residential development under the Development Charges Act typically includes commercial, institutional, and industrial type developments. So as part of this process, we had looked at the existing development charge bylaw and updated it. One major update is, of course, the addition of the Hutton Heights service area. We've added some additional definitions into the glossary, and this is a function of new changes to the Act. There are some additional exemptions for additional units in existing and new types of dwellings, and this is also a function of recent amendments to the Act. So things like secondary suites, you may have heard back when Doug Ford was originally amending the Development Charge Act, one of the big things the big cities wanted, so Toronto's and those sort of places, was exemptions for granny suites, alley type housing, secondary type units, and that has been included in the Act, so then we have to include it in our bylaw. There's also new rules around how certain types of developments can pay their development charges. So rental and institutional developments have the opportunity to pay their development charges in installments over 5 years. And then nonprofit housing, they can pay their development charges in installments over 21 years. So we have included those provisions in the bylaw as well, because they do come from the new amended Act. So there are some statutory exemptions to development charges. These come out of the Act again. So if I put an addition on my existing home, you can't collect development charges for that. Certain types of, as I said before, secondary suites, you're not allowed to collect for that. And any industrial development that's less than 50% of the gross floor area, you cannot collect for as well. Municipalities do have the opportunity to put in their own exemptions in their bylaw. Lots of municipalities exempt places of worship, farm buildings like barns. It's up to the municipalities to make those calls on what they would like to exempt. So when it comes to the draft bylaw, council can consider, what they hear tonight and implement phasing into the development charges. So if there's a significant increase in development charges, you can phase it in. That gives developers a bit of a break and allows them to do a bit more financial planning. If there's any exemptions that council wants to consider, that can be included in the bylaw, or discounts for certain types of developments. When it comes to exemptions, any developer can come to council ahead of, when they build and ask for an exemption, and that's a decision of council to make. Of course, the consequence is what you don't collect from developers to pay for future growth, the only other pocket it comes from is the taxpayer. So quite often when I do these presentations, everybody wants to know what the neighbors are doing and see where they compare. One thing to remember when I pull up the numbers on the next slide is that development charges are purely a function of the projects you're doing that benefit future growth. So you might have some municipalities that have really, really high development charges because they have to put in a major multi-million-dollar expansion to their water treatment plant. Or they might have all kinds of capacity and they won't be doing any big projects, so they'll have really small development charges. So just keep that in mind when you see these numbers. So on the top of the list, we've got Kincardine. They recently went through the development charge process and updating their bylaw. So their development charge went from $13,000 to $18,000, and that's a function of they're doing a lot of major water and wastewater infrastructure projects. In Huron-Kinloss, in Ripley-Lucknow, their charges are a little over $4,000. And then we've got Finley Street. And Finley Street has development charges of $58,000. And I'm sure there's a few folks who maybe are kind of wide-eyed at that number, but it's a function of providing services from road, water, storm, and sanitary from nothing. So there was no Finley Street before, and now there's Finley Street with services. So those folks are paying for the cost of getting services, and unfortunately for them, Finley is a very short little street, and there's only 10 lots on one side that the costs get shared among. So it's a kind of a scale of economy type development charge in that case. Goderic's development charges are around $2,000. They're in the same boat as you guys right now. They're updating their development charges. In Exeter, their charges are a little over $4,000. And then your neighbors a little further to the east, in Listowel, if I was to build a house in Listowel, I'd be paying around $19,000 in development charges. If I lived out in the rural area of North Perth, I'd be paying about $13,500. And then your Huron County compatriots in Bayfield, Hensel, and Zurich pay between $7,000 and about $9,500 in development charges, depending on which village you're in. So you can see there's quite a range in development charges, even in this local area. And then if you go to the bigger places, you'll see even bigger numbers. So the next steps in the development charge process is for council to hear and consider the feedback they received tonight. If there's any changes or amendments they'd like to make to the bylaw, we can certainly accommodate that. And then the next step would be passing the development charge bylaw.
Thank you very much for that, Courtney. We appreciate it. 6.2.2 would be presentations from the public. Any public body that want to comment will be heard. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to it? Yeah, we're going to start with you, Mr. Kyvenhoven.
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay, do you mind?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. So, good evening, Reed Bailey and all of the council members and staff. My name is Doug Hyvenhoven, and I'm planning to construct assisted living retirement residences on the property directly behind the train station in Wingham that fronts onto Shooter Street. The proposed facility will be probably a 4-story building, similar to Harbor Hill Retirement Suites in Goderich. If you've been there, if you've seen that in Goderich near the McDonald's, between McDonald's and McGee Auto there. The project will be built in 2 or 3 phases. The first phase would be probably 50 to 60 units, and when completed it would have 100 to 125 units. 90% of the units would be single occupancy. My parents had their sunset years at Harbor Hill, and when you went down the dining hall, it was basically all women, a few men, and so you can imagine it was pretty much all single occupancy per unit. Each unit does not have a kitchen. They're just strictly a microwave, little fridge, and a sink, and a washroom in each one of the units. No kitchens. No stoves or and those kind of appliances. So The bylaw to establish development charges for the Township of North Huron is proposing 3 categories for development charges: single and semi, multi-unit, and apartments. So for Wingham, the apartment would be $5,677 under the proposed bylaw. Using the apartment's development fee for 100 units works out to over $500,000 would be the development charge on a project like that. First phase, then half of that, $250,000. North Huron is working hard to increase the available housing. And in the first phase, this project will add 50 plus housing units to Wingham's housing. The facility will be paying property taxes for decades in the future. The project will likely have just 1 sewer connection, 1 water connection, and 1 or 2 storm drain connections. There will be 0 additional roads and public sidewalks for the town to maintain and plow, and there won't be any daycare added load due to this facility. So the developing this property is going to take significant investments, and all the costs are up front. The first phase, with all the amenities, has to be 100% complete, staff hired, kitchen staff in place, cleaning staff in place, before the first resident can move in. And it will likely take 3 years to get up to 65-70% occupancy. So it's only at that point that the project actually starts to cash flow positive. So I'm here, and there's always somebody that has to request this, so I'm here to request exemption of development charges on this project. It's in town, it's existing land base that's there, and so I'm seeking the council would consider exempting this project from the development charges.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kragenhoven. We're going to address that after. We just want to make sure that nobody else in the public wants to speak to it. Is there anyone else in the public who would like to speak to this? Not seeing. Kirk, hiding way over there in the corner.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions for Lisa, for clarification of the bylaw. Will the bylaw affect any farm properties, say these Swallownuts, where there's an older home and they want to build a new home? So the older home was never subject to any DCs at that time.
So currently in the bylaw, sorry, I'm going
Go ahead.
to speak to everybody. There is a clause that if somebody wants to demolish an existing home and they want to rebuild, they don't have to pay development charges if they build within a set amount of time. I'll just, off the top of my head, I don't remember the exact number of years. Typically, it's anywhere between 3 and 5.
I think their existing bylaw references 5 years from the time of implementation of the bylaw, and this one came in 2016.
Yeah.
So then it'd be 3 to 5 years, or 5 years from this October.
It would be 5 years from when they get their demolition permit. So we have a 5-year window to rebuild.
Okay.
So that covers things like if somebody had a fire and had to rebuild, they would pay development charges if they rebuilt within 5 years.
Right, okay. Thank you. And then my last question would be, in the Planning Act and in the zoning bylaws, some properties, say EG1 for instance, the primitive structures would be a farmhouse, and then accessory structures might be a mobile home for farm labor. Is that mobile home subject to DCs, and or would a mobile home permitted under a temporary use bylaw be subject to DCs?
Typically, if it's under a temporary use bylaw, it is not subject to development charges. If it is a more permanent structure, then it would be subject, or should be subject to development charges.
Thank you.
And if may I provide some commentary on Mr. Kagan's?
Yeah.
Okay, so the example of your development would likely fall more under an institutional type development charge. So that would be a non-residential development charge. And just, we'll stick with the Harbor Hills example because it's a very good one. and one most folks are familiar with. That facility is about 9,400 square meters. So based on the calculated non-residential development charges that I showed earlier, a similar facility would have a development charge of just a little over $100,000. So it wouldn't be necessarily a residential development charge, it would be a non-residential development charge. Now, in the past, council has not collected non-residential development charges, so it will be up to council to decide this time around if you would like to include that non-residential development charge.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public? Okay, I'm going to open it up now to council.
Oh, sorry, there was another.
Question, the services that B.M. Ross provided,
Yes.
what was the cost of that?
The development charge study process is $25,000, and that's collected through development charges. So the taxpayer doesn't pay that, future development pays it.
But it all reflects. Somebody has to pay it.
Yes.
The developer pays up front, but he's not into the Santa Claus, so that means people who buy into it have to pay that too. It trickles down to the bottom line. There's only one set of pockets.
Yes. Typically, when a developer or a home builder pays development charges, that cost gets included in that cost of the home.
And that's all up front. These costs are done before he puts a shovel in the ground. Is that my understanding?
That's correct.
I would just like to add to that I've yet to meet the person that doesn't have to be paid for the work they do. I don't care who they are. Okay? So I just want to throw that in there. Okay, and I couldn't see you, sorry. Anyone else? I'll stand up where I can see everybody. Anybody else in the audience? Okay, not seeing any. I'm going to hand it over to council now. Who'd like to start the conversation? Go ahead, Paul.
To you, Reed. Yes, I see in here on our parks that it was $270, and that's gone up to just about $2,000. I'm just curious why that much of a jump.
Yep, so the cost of developing parkland has increased. Previously, we based the charge on about $40,000 an acre to develop a park. So that's to put in the swings and the trails and the bathrooms, all the things the park needs. Through the work that we do, we know that cost is closer to $50,000 an acre. So that is part of the increase. As well, the parkland services includes trail development project that was not previously collected for. So that's a new project that's been included, as well as a multi-use court project. So the increase is a function of new projects.
Who's next?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Paul. Yeah, no,
yes.
Paul.
Again, yes, Lisa. I saw a letter in there that came from a gentleman that's done a lot of building in North Erie since we came in town there. And I almost get the feeling that if you get it too high, that they might look elsewhere. And is there any way like these type of charges could be put in 2 installments, like go part way and then in 2 years? It's just a question.
Certainly, council can phase in development charges if they'd like. Yep, if you want to phase in the increase, you can certainly do that. But again, what you don't collect for, you have that money you can't collect more from the next guy. You've lost out on that potential amount you could collect.
Great, thanks, Paul. Anyone else? Go ahead, Anita.
Yes, who is deciding what is a non-residential development or not?
So in the bylaw, it specifies what's considered residential and non-residential.
Okay.
So it sets out the definitions for commercial, institutional, and industrial.
And what about farm buildings like barns and that? Is that named there too, or?
Typically, they fall under non-residential. And
so that would be in fact for these new non-residential development charges?
Yes, unless council specifies that they would like to exempt farm buildings. Many councils do. You know, if somebody's building a driving shed, typically they don't need a lot of municipal services. So where I am in here on Kinloss, they do not collect development charges for agricultural uses.
Okay. Anyone else? I think I'm gonna, okay, go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, trying to think of what I want to ask. So the question ultimately has been in the past councils, or at least the last council that I was a part of, we reduced the charge from $8,000 in Wingham to $5,000 with thinking that by reducing it, it would spur development, or at least it wouldn't hinder development. What I'm hearing though is, especially in the sense of most of Huron County is providing development charges in one shape or another. There are exceptions to that rule, let me be clear. That I would find it more hardsome, that's not the word I want to use. I would find it more of a hardship to the taxpayers of North Huron if we didn't have it. Because arguably the whole idea of development charges is the future pays for the future, the past pays for what they have had currently. So, prime example, I'm just using an example, is I would not expect somebody in North Huron, in Wingham or Blythe, or even existing East Wonash, to pay for a water pipe that's going from Wingham to Hutton Heights. I would not expect somebody to pay for that, except for the people who are actually using that water and those services. That's what development charges in my mind is meant to do. And somebody will say, well, $22,000 is a lot of money. Yes, it is. But that $22,000 either can go to those people who are building those houses or that development, or it can be spread out over the whole people of North Huron, which in reality, is that fair? I would say no, it's not fair. If you want to develop a house in Hutton Heights, you should have to pay for the services that you get. And North Huron is making an effort to ensure development is happening in these places that we know development can exist. And I would not want to see, and I'm not hearing from a lot of developers, I don't see a lot of developers in the audience that would suggest that you putting a development charge is going to change what I built. Because ultimately they're going to go and they're going to charge to whoever's building that house or that farm structure if that's what comes in or whatever. So, in my mind, it's when you build those types of structures, you know the costs of what it's going to cost, because when you ask your builder to buy something and he puts a quote on it for $350,000 or $400,000, that's the price to you. The developer has to choose how he's going to charge that development charge, and is he going to eat it or is he going to pass it on? That's his choice. That's not North Huron's choice. So, one of the things that I was a very big proponent to reducing development charges 5 years ago. I'm not so eager to drop them in 2021, because I don't see how it really changes a developer's frame of mind on whether they want to develop in North Huron. Because if they want to go to Hanover or Walkerton or wherever else, with some exceptions, they're going to have to pay something. And maybe that's only going to change their profitability, but that's their choice. We have this issue where we have small pieces of land that we need to develop to change our tax base. As the Reeve has talked about, we have not increased our tax base for quite so many years. We are starting to do that, but we have to have services in order to do that. So, I think that really in my mind, the debate more is this conversation about the institutionalized stuff that we have not charged in the past. And really, in all fairness to myself and this council, we could exempt these things, but in an institutionalized, but I would rather have the conversation on a time by time basis as to whether that exemption should apply. And I'm using Mr. Kuyvenhoven's his response, because he may not develop in 3 years. Well, he may have a brand new council at the day. So, we haven't seen plans, we haven't seen anything, there's been nothing other than his communication that says that's what's going to happen. I would rather see those things come at the time of him wanting that exemption, at the time of development, because then it's a more of a right at that time, and not just a blanket discussion, because I don't know what is going to change. Because let's be clear, if we put a blanket institutionalized thing in there, if that institutionalized, and I agree with Mr. Kuyvenhoven where his location is, but if that was located in Hutton Heights, that's a different ballgame. So it's got to be situational on where these things are. So I think my mind is the conversation really needs to be about institutionalized, whether we have that exemption or we leave that exemption to be, let the developers come and ask for an exemption based on the scenario of what their development is, because every council then can look at the merit at that time and not just blanket it across the whole municipality. So, that's my comments, Reeve. I just wanted to make sure that people are clear, because I know there has been some conversation down here about, well, there's only one taxpayer. You're right, there is. But the taxpayer that's brand new to North Huron is paying for that development charge, not somebody who's been here for 25 years. That's what the conversation development charges is all about.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve Sight. Go ahead, Mr. Haver.
Yes, to you, Reeve. I think you did mention, Lisa, that we would be talking about each institutionalized properties. That comes to us and we'll discuss it when it comes up.
You
Did you not say that?
You certainly can. You certainly can.
Go ahead, Anita.
Thank you, everybody. As a developer, I think I would appreciate it if I would know the development charges beforehand, so I can go to bank and add that to my pile of invoices.
Well, as it just so happens, I'm going to touch on this subject. I'm going to side with Anita on this one. I think if somebody did or does come to me, the question they're going to have is, how much is it going to cost me? They need to know that when they're spending $50 or $25 million on a project, whether it be Hutton Heights or Mr. Kuyvenhoven on the main street, just off the main street of Wingham. I think for assisted living and nursing homes and anything else that would fall under that category, or any large development, whether it be a county building that may end up here, or we'll start maybe talking about something like that with 50 or 100 units, I think it's something where the developer should know ahead of time, this is the price. As pointed out by Trevor and Paul, it can be negotiated at the time. Anything can be negotiated when they come. But I know if I were going to spend $25 million spending something, I wouldn't say, well, I'm not sure what the land's going to be worth, because once you start building it, you don't move it. You're stuck on that land. So I think it would be a good thing if we could take that back and have a look at that, see what other communities are doing. But I honestly think there should be a set rate, and I think it should be a special rate, considering the fact that it is assisted living and it is a nursing home. And we as a community are willing, more than willing, to help those people out. And if a cut to the development charges would do it, I'm fine with that. But did you want to? I'm going to touch on a couple other things. Did you want to speak to that?
It's up to council.
Okay.
Typically, how other municipalities have approached, if they want to provide specific exemptions or discounts, they will name the specific types of development, so assisted living, nursing, kind of the examples you gave. But they'll say, we are charging the non-residential rate, but for nursing, retirement, whatever, the rate is 50% of the calculated, or whatever council decides.
With council's permission, could we send that back for staff to have a conversation to come forward? I truly believe it is something you need to have solid. Again, how many times, and it's in emails, I don't know if you guys get the same emails I do, 1,000 a week. It takes too long to build, it takes too long to build, it takes too long to build. Let's put a set price in there, and that's one more thing just got checked off. We're not gonna have, because we only meet twice a month, right? And if a builder wants, and he's worked on it for 3 months, he doesn't want to wait 3 months for us to send it to staff, and staff to work with it, and staff to work with your company in, and blah, 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 blah. So I think it would be, to have just, if you could give that some thought, I think it would be a good idea to have a special set rate for those type of institutes.
So Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So just to provide some clarity, so the process, so this is the public meeting, this is when you would want to provide that feedback to Lisa so that she can incorporate it in the draft bylaw, and then that draft bylaw would be presented, right now it's scheduled to be presented at the September 20th meeting, right? So, and that's due to our existing bylaw being set to expire, right? So, should council want to provide a discount to specific non-residential developments, you would want to provide that direction to Lisa, and I would certainly recommend that you would want to provide that in a motion of what that looks like.
So I'm not seeing any hands. So Lisa, right now, did you want to speak to it, Trevor?
Yeah. So your comment is, so the comment has been made is that if they're making this, whatever the development they're making, they need to know what price that's going to be. Well, if we institute non-residential development charges, they're going to know. They can do that long in advance of what their square, all they need to know is what square footage is, and they can know what the price is. If they're willing to not pay that, then they can have all they have to do is submit a letter to the municipality to request an exemption. What I'm saying is, we haven't done this in the past. We haven't had any of it. So if an institutionalized or a farm or an agricultural building or whatever, there's been no development charges, zero. So the question ultimately is from what I'm hearing, Reeve, is it the concern that what the non-residential, like what those dollars per square meter are? Is that the issue that you have, or is it just that you want them to know exactly what the number is?
Going back to all the conversation I've heard, non-residential, I don't believe that there was the nursing homes that are assisted living in there.
They are included.
They are in there. And right now, we're not charging anything if they would like to build.
That's correct.
Okay. And we're leaving that in there.
That's up to council to decide.
So currently today,
Yep.
if Mr. Kuyvenhoven were to build his building today, he would pay $0 in development charges. Under the current bylaw that will be coming in a week,
Yep.
he would be paying $11.62 per square meter to develop that assisted living unit. The question is, for council, is are we wanting to put that in and saying, Mr. Kuyvenhoven or anybody who wants to develop, your price is now $11.62 a square meter, or if you don't want that charge, you have the right to come to council and look for an exemption. Council has the right to deny it or approve it. That's really the question I think is being asked here tonight.
So I'm going to go back then. I'm not sure what's all sitting on the non-residential. I had barns and stuff like that when I was thinking about it. So we need to clarify that.
Industrial, commercial, and institutional, and any agricultural. Currently, your bylaw does have an exemption for non-residential farm buildings. So that is something that we can carry forward in the new bylaw.
So,
Go ahead, Anita.
Thank you. I would like to keep it the way it is. We charge sanitary and water sewage connection fees. If there is a need for, I don't think there's the need for the non-residential development charges per square meter, because that can go up very high for buildings. And they're mostly empty buildings or buildings with animals in there, or no, I'm not talking about the institutional ones, but there's a high need for institutional buildings, and I'm not in favor of charging non-residential development.
And I would agree with Anita. Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you. Through you, most institutional buildings fall into two categories: provincially built and funded, or private, as in old folks' homes, residence or retirement homes. Most of the ones that I've seen that are on right now are for profit. If they could show that they're going to lower their costs to the people that are going to live in there because we reduced the development charge that we need to not have come from our taxpayers, I would be in favor of something like that. But I can't see them. They're going to charge top dollar, same as developers. Just because we have a development charge doesn't mean that they're not going to. They're going to sell that property for less money. They're going to do whatever the market will hold. So whether we have a development charge there or we don't is irrelevant unless it's institutional, which would be provincial, which would be here to encumber, that is paid through our tax base to support people that require that kind of support. So I can't see these industrial or these development charges having any impact whatsoever on any of it.
So in the back, just so you know, in the back of my mind, what I'm thinking is with the shortage of houses, with just the way the world is right now financially, and our worry about job losses here in North Huron, I think if we were to bolster and push on helping people that want to leave the big house they had and move into, and if this could help in any way, shape, or form, create that housing as soon as possible. Because no matter where you go in here in county, and I'm not sure if it's tomorrow or this Wednesday or next Thursday, we're going at it again at the county level. How do we get the housing out there, the social housing, and help everybody that needs the help? It's taking forever, but if you've got somebody that's willing to step forward and put their own personal money into it or investments into it, I think we should be pushing it for that and that reason only. Keeping in mind that 5 years down the road, if everything straightens out, we can put a development charge, whoever the council is can put a development charge on then, on everything. I would suggest just leaving it the way it is as far as that end of it then. Go ahead, Paul.
Yes, through you, Reed. I'm just looking at these numbers here, and it's great. Like they're charging, as Deputy Site said, like for the Hutton Heights. I see that. But in town here, it seems that we're jumping up above everybody else. I see the three places down in Bayfield, in the blue water zone there. They all have big water things going on too. But we're not below them, we're above them. Is that what we want to be? Like, is there a bit of a happy median? That's why it's bringing in the 2 standard, because all of a sudden we're higher than most of them. Like Lisa mentioned the different names up there. That's just what I'm coming back by reading that one letter that was presented to us.
So if I can just toss in there, my understanding is our development fees are that high because we need this and this and this. So that's what we make so we can say, let's not buy a plow, let's not fix any roads. Then it'll go down because we don't have the money to do it. Like, am I right on that, Lisa? That's it, right? And then what happens is then, as I believe it was Deputy Site pointed out, then every taxpayer is paying for it. This is special development for new buildings so that the existing folks with their properties don't have to pay for that. We're trying to find a unique way, and it is generally used across the board.
Yes, I do agree with that, but I still feel we got to make sure that the building's going to be happening here too.
Yes.
Not going. That's where I'm coming at. That's where do you put this balance? Thank you.
Thank you. You were first, Anita?
Yeah, just a short thing. If we are going to compare development charges with different communities, we also have to compare the prices of the building lots and way more many things, so I don't think this is a really high number. It's a whole package that you have to compare them. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Recite?
Yeah, and in my humble opinion, you know, that slide should be removed from everybody's request. To compare anybody's development charge to somebody else's is a waste of time. Because your projects in scope and in value could be a whole lot different than somebody else's scope and in value, and therefore you're comparing apples to oranges. And I mean, arguably, yes. Could they go to somebody and spend $8,000 on development charge and not spend $10,000 North Huron? Yes, they could. But it's going to come down to what we have available. I mean, if we have residential building available to us, lots, and other communities don't, development charges doesn't take into consideration any of that, because it's all based on demand and on where those lots are. So, I mean, developers are going to choose what's in their best interest based on value, based on need, based on how easy it is to develop, a lot of things. Development charges, in my mind, is one small thing that they're going to look at, not the big. And this is my personal opinion. From last year, from 5 years ago, when I said, "Oh, we should reduce it by $3,000 in Wingham because I think that'll spur development." Well, I can tell you right now, there wasn't any development in the 5 years that we had those development charges, or very little, from a commercial perspective, or from a residential perspective, and therefore where we are is we're no further wrong without it. So, I mean, arguably these are all great points, and I completely understand, I completely agree with, Councillor Van Hittersum when she talks about agricultural buildings and that type of stuff in East Wawanage. I personally don't believe development charges is the right place there. I really don't. But I do not think that we should be not charging non-residential development charges, because we don't know what could or could not be developed in Hutton Heights on those lands. And if that's the case, we've now said we can't get that money, and that development charge, that cost for those development charges for Hutton Heights are now gone. We can't get them back. And now the part is where everybody else is going to have to pick up the part for that. So I mean, we have to talk about the institutionalizing those exemptions, but again, I am one of these things where I'm okay with agricultural. I have a hard time accepting an exemption, a blanket exemption for all institutionalized, when if you want to institutionalize your building, you can come to council. As Grieve said, we have meetings twice a month. Developments take years. Council meetings shouldn't be the issue about a development charge. And if it is, the staff have a bigger problem than the council does. Because those are the comments that have to be made from a staff perspective to us that says, we have to do something about this because it's going too far down the line before we can make that call, and we can't make the call fast enough.
So just to follow up with that, Council, I want, and Carson, make sure I don't go astray in this. How does everybody feel about Trevor's idea of individually working with them as they come along? That's where you're going, Trevor?
That's what I was saying.
Okay, let's throw that out on the floor. Are we good with that? Can I do that?
Well, so if the way, and Lisa, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here, but the way the bylaw is drafted right now is you would have development charges for residential and you would have development charges for non-residential. And so if that's what you want to continue to do and you want to evaluate them on a per case basis, you don't need to provide any direction. We would bring the bylaw back as currently drafted for September 20th. So you don't need to have a vote. If you wanted to provide different direction, such as providing an exemption for some capacity of non-residential development charges, you would need to provide that direction to Lisa of what that looks like. And so in order to provide that direction, you would need to put a motion forward and have a vote.
So my understanding is if everybody agrees with Trevor, then we're fine. Go ahead.
Marty, I just want to ask the question. In the current bylaw today, because they would fall in the non-resident, agricultural buildings are exempt, correct?
They are exempt, and they're also specified as a specific exemption regardless of non-residential or residential.
Okay, so what I'm suggesting is leaving that exemption in, but charging non-residential development charges as a whole. So do we need a motion for that perspective? If we don't, then I'm fine with that. That's what my hope is.
And that is how the bylaw is currently drafted.
Okay.
Lisa, if you don't mind, can you tell us what's all involved in that bylaw for non-residential? If you have it handy?
Yep, so let me just find the right page. So currently the bylaw specifies that development charges will be for residential and non-residential development charges, and then the glossary we specify. Oh, it does not include that. Oh, sorry, that's the old one. I didn't bring my.
I just want to confirm what we're calling non-residential, because in the world I lived in, and I thought we were talking industrial, farming, et cetera, anywhere where you make a living.
So non-residential is just defined as a building or structure used other than for residential use. But it does include, we do have the exemption for non-residential farm buildings.
Yeah. So my concern is if somebody wanted to put up a assisted living or a nursing home, we're sure that would be non-residential.
Yeah. I can expand that definition in the glossary to say commercial, institutional, and industrial development.
Great. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? I'm not seeing. I just had a couple other questions. I know this is dragging on. So when you're talking about when we're running, say, the pipe, we're spending $3 to $30 million. We don't know how much to run it out to Hutton Heights, and we know that we're going to charge the residents of North Huron who are going to hook into it. Do we also charge residents if down the road, if the motel, which is in Morris Turnberry, would like out on Highway 4 there, London Road, sorry, if they want to hook into it, can we charge them development fees?
You cannot charge them development charges because they are in a different municipality. You can only collect development charges within your municipality.
So how do I square that then when I tell somebody in North Huron they're paying $30,000, $36,000 to have the water and sewer out, but the guy across the street doesn't have to pay anything?
You would charge them probably through a different mechanism. It would likely be through a development agreement or servicing agreement.
Oh, a development agreement or a servicing agreement with another municipality. Oh, that's how you would do it. I wish somebody would tell the other municipalities. Thank you very much for that. I never stop. Okay, that's it for me. Anybody else? Not seeing any. We don't need a...
Kirk has a question.
One question with the square meter charge, Lisa. Is that per building footprint or per floor?
Usually it's for the building. Is that something, like we could specify that?
Well, you could have a 7-story or a 4-story building plan, and the fixture units displacing the fluid would be 4 times, 7 times more than a single story. So, it'd be nice if that was clear.
So say total square footage, or what would be the proper, what would you like to see?
Well, I guess if it's
No,
per square meter,
no, I didn't mean right now.
the definition is that per square meter is defined as building footprint or floor area. To me, where the incoming individual wouldn't matter, but just clarification for that individual, because if not, it's going to end up in front of council.
Yep, I can add that.
Okay, thank you very much, Lisa. We appreciate everything you do for us and the hard work you go through. Oh, I forgot the public comments. Excuse me, go ahead.
Well, no, I spoke for
clarification then on the square footage, if it's the total square footage of the building, you're after the residential, the living space, but you've also then got like ancillary stuff like recreation space and dining area and stuff like that. So just to clarify, whether you're going to charge that on the residential area of the building or.
Because it's to be for the non-residential.
Oh, okay, I thought you said I missed it.
Meter for the non-residential, it would be everything in the building, like the entire.
All right.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Appreciate that. Thank you for your help.
Thank you, council.
Okay. We're going to move on to 6.3, zoning bylaw amendment, file number Z05-2021. And if we can have Monica up. We have Monica up here to talk about the zoning bylaw in the Wingham Ward. Yeah. And by the way, this is the last time Monica's going to talk to us. She is leaving for happier fields, what do we call it, Monica?
I hope it's happy.
You're just going a little north. We'll catch you when we want.
I'm going to be senior policy planner out of the Walkerton office for Bruce County Planning and Development.
On behalf of council, I want to congratulate you and tell you it's been a wonderful time working with you.
Thank you so much. That's very nice to hear. And it's been a pleasure working with you, council, and I'm pleased to be here tonight. Reed Bailey, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce Hannah Holman. I'll just ask Hannah to stand, please. Hannah is with Huron County Planning and Development, and she's the planner that will be providing service to North Huron, and she wanted to attend tonight to have a chance to be introduced and say hello.
Okay, let's give Monica a real hard time to help the new one.
I guess I deserve that. So on the screen now, I have the PowerPoint presentation for a zoning bylaw amendment application Z05 for 21. I'm here to speak to this application tonight and to provide a recommendation from the planning department. I believe there are some folks in attendance tonight on behalf of the applicants, and there may be other members of the public who wish to speak to this as well. But I'll take this opportunity to provide an introduction to the application itself and provide the planning department's recommendation. But I am available after my presentation if there are further questions to discuss. So this is an application for zoning bylaw amendment. The applicant is Rhonda Bailey. The location of the property is in Wingham. The street address is 290 Minnie Street in Wingham. The subject property I'll show you in a moment is located in a residential neighborhood in Wingham. The zoning bylaw proposes to change the zoning on the subject property from medium density residential, R2, to a medium density residential special zone, R2-21. The reason for the special zone is to permit a mobile home to be permanently attached to the existing 3-unit building to create a 4th dwelling unit on the property. If this was an ordinary addition to the house to add a 4th unit that was a stick-built or on-site built addition, this zoning bylaw amendment wouldn't be required. The reason for the zoning bylaw amendment is to specifically permit a mobile home to be used, because the zoning bylaw prohibits mobile homes to be used in any zones other than where they're explicitly permitted. So the zoning bylaw amendment is needed to specifically allow the mobile home to be used. This is an image from our WebGIS program that shows the location of the subject building and property on our WebGIS. Minnie Street is located on the right-hand side of the image, and an unnamed lane is located on the left to middle portion of the image. The unnamed lane is an access lane that's used by properties in the area for properties to access their backyards. And because of this unique feature of having a back lane, it does introduce a more public-facing element to the backyards of these properties. So consideration was given in my review to the impact of adding an addition to the back side of the building. Because of that lane being there, the backyard is more visible than it would be if there weren't a lane accessing the back. This is an image that I took during my site inspection that shows the front view of the building. And this is the view of the property from the rear lane. And the proposed mobile home addition would be attached to the rear portion of this building. So the back lane would be the side of the building where the mobile home would be most visible. So in considering this application for zoning bylaw amendment, the policies of North Huron's official plan were considered. And in the North Huron official plan, there is a policy that says that when a zoning bylaw amendment is being considered, that the design and character of the surrounding neighborhood should be taken into consideration. And in consideration of that concern and concerns that were raised by North Huron staff that the design of the proposed mobile home will be difficult to incorporate into the look of the neighborhood, as well as concerns that were raised about the longevity and aging process of a mobile home, of whether that will be able to be maintained like an ordinary addition. It is the Planning Department's recommendation that this application for zoning bylaw amendment be denied. So I know that that's a pretty brief presentation, but I am available if there are further questions or questions from council.
Thank you very much, Monica. 6.3.2, this is the opportunity to comment by the applicant or their agent. If you wouldn't mind coming up, thank you. And just for council's reference, Mrs. Bailey and Mr. Bailey here don't know each other. We're not related or ever met till this very minute.
Good name, though.
Huh?
Okay, if I remove my mask?
Yes, yes.
Hard to talk.
Yep.
Thank you very much for seeing me today. I did provide a package of information. I think that you probably got it in a package of information, so I was just going to review that. That presently it is a legal residential triplex, and it has laundry in 2 units, and all 3 units with 2 bedrooms and 3 full 4-piece washrooms, and there's basement for storage only. So the 3 units, none of them are in the basement. The total square footage is 2370. The lot size, as Monica brought out there, was 101.50 frontage and 166.7 feet deep. It has 1 single driveway on one side and a double driveway on the other side. So there's sufficient parking, and all the parking would be accommodated on the property with no negative impact on the neighborhood surrounding road network. My vision is to create a safe and affordable housing that is in keeping with the local aesthetics of the neighborhood. The property meets all the requirements of the city to expand rental aspects of the community by creating 1 more additional unit. I currently house 2 tenants employed by Westcast Industry and a single mother. It is good for me, obviously, though more importantly good for the community to fill the gap of lack of rentals. My purpose is also to fulfill a need for the community that will not negatively impact or be a disruption in the neighborhood. I do have a good reputation in the area, but the addition of the park home will blend seamlessly with the existing building. Dave Isaac from General Coach confirmed via email that the CSA label identifies the home to be certified as a mobile home meeting the Z240 standards. This itself verifies it to be a mobile home. It will be permanently immobilized in place It has a full 4-piece bath, furnace, 2 bedrooms, eat-in kitchen, living room, enclosed sun porch, as well as an outdoor covered porch, and 3 entries or exits. Stackable laundry would be provided. And I'm prepared to provide all the appropriate documentation, including a site plan. I have good communication with the neighbors as well as with my tenants who have no complaints. I have the property professionally landscaped in the summer, and snow removal is provided in the winter. I also provide maintenance to my tenants in an efficient manner. I use local businesses for services as well as for plumbing, appliance repairs, replacement. My husband, Tony Casimiri, is a professional contractor, and he is overseeing this project. He presently has a very good reputation and well known in Brussels. When he took ownership of a property on Turnberry, there were 2 transient tenants and another long-term tenant. And he was able to remove the transient tenants, improved and updated the property so significantly, giving credit to the town. And he now provides housing to very 5 good tenants who hold him in high regard. He's well known in the town of Brussels, but he does very good professional work, so he's going to be overseeing this project. Both my husband and I feel very rewarded and proud that we're able to assist people with affordable, well-maintained housing. I did provide a survey that came with the package. I presume that you saw that one. As well as pictures. I hope that you all saw that too. I did have renderings for the unit. This is the back of the unit. That's the laneway, facing the laneway. And this is the side that would be facing the double driveway side. So there's...
I can hold those up for you.
Oh, thank you, Monica. And I don't know if you saw them in the package, the actual pictures of the park home that were provided or not. But the addition would remove 2 windows from both the park home and the existing house, but natural light would still be provided by the side windows on both the house and the park home. It's not like a trailer inside whatsoever. It has got high ceilings, they're peaked ceilings. It looks like a nice little home. My purpose, there's the senior townhouses there that are right beside me that provide housing for seniors. I think this would be ideal for a senior person because they wouldn't have to climb a flight of stairs. A single person or a senior person, that's what I think it would be most fitting for. There's the height of the ceiling inside is very high. It doesn't look like a mobile home at all. It looks like a park home. And it's well equipped. To fix it in place, there's something called helicoils, I think it is. It's called helicoils that would immobilize it in place. Everything would be removed. It would be maintained properly, and I'm very proud of the property myself, and I want to keep it that way. So I guess that's it.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Bailey.
Thank you. Do I stay here, or do you have
If you don't mind
questions?
just going back down, we'll let anybody from the public up to have a comments if they wish.
Thank you.
We're working under difficult places because of COVID-19. So. Okay. 6.3.3 would be opportunity to comment by others in attendance. Is there? Yes. If you don't mind coming up and giving us your name. Do you need address too?
No, just you generally, if they come up through that side and stand over there, so they're not passing Monica every time, right?
Oh, okay. Now that she's leaving, not a good time to get sick.
Hi, my name is Mary Beth Dixon. I am a property owner on Leopold Street, which is right in the neighborhood. I am not for this. I am dead set against it. I think it opens a whole new can of worms. I do not want to see a mobile home. And any way you get around it, it's a mobile home. If you have a park, even in a park setting, there are rules that say the age of the mobile home you can bring in. So once this mobile home gets to 10 years old, can we have it removed and taken out? Because it is not a permanent structure. I have no problem with an addition to that, to bring on another person, another apartment, no problem at all. I just don't want to see this happen. I'm in an older part of town. I know this wouldn't happen anywhere else in town. The lots are not large enough for one thing. It is a large lot. I just, like she said, there are the senior citizens home. There are a number of apartments right across the street from that. I know we need more apartments in Wingham. I just don't want it to be done with a mobile home. At this time, there is an apartment in Wingham, and for some reason, a big trailer has been set upon the front yard of this apartment. It's just sitting there. I don't know if it's going to be there forever. It's been there all summer. I don't want this happening. If I do, I think our taxes gotta go way down, and I should be paying what I would pay if I lived in a mobile park. I just don't want to see this happening where it gives the right to other people to do the same thing. How many more are just going to move in and stick on a mobile home? I don't agree.
Thank you very much for that. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to address this?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Thanks. My name is Guy Mackey, and I live at 252 Minnie Street, just up the street from this property. I guess my question initially is the...
Sir, just a second. Sorry about that. Could you please repeat your name, Carson?
Guy Mackey.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'm at 252 Minnie Street. I'm concerned, I'm wondering the footprint or the dimensions of this structure. A typical mobile home is what, 12 by 40 feet?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how representative that is of other buildings in the area. You know, with the caveat that it should fit into the neighborhood. I don't see anything else in the neighborhood that has those same dimensions or would look that same way. And I guess I'm wondering about the precedent that it may set for others. I have neighbors in my area that have plots of land in our neighborhood with no buildings on them, and I'm wondering what their rights might be from a precedent-setting perspective for doing the same thing.
Okay. Thank you very kindly.
Okay, thanks.
Just come up. If you don't, do you mind just coming up to the podium and giving us your name?
Good evening, everyone. So I'm the HR from Wisconsin Industries, and Rhonda is the owner of 290 Minnie Street, and our two expats was living there and has been living there for around 3 years. But last year, Rhonda owned that building, and we still rent the apartment. So I think for Westcast, we are struggling to hire people. For last month, our employee who live in London, so he was hired by us, but he couldn't find any place to live in Wingham. So after 3 months, he resigned. So I think for this kind of man, I'm supportive of the temporary, even it is temporary, right? So I think I support a temporary solution or a permanent solution. So it's helping our companies hire people and keep people. So that's my opinion. Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. We do appreciate that. Is there anyone else? I'm not seeing anyone. Okay, I'm told I have one. Yep.
I'm George Dixon. I'm a resident of the neighborhood, and I want to make it perfectly clear that I'm dead against the mobile home, and my son, who lives 2 doors down, he's against it too. Now, this woman talked about her great clientele that is in her apartments. I blow a lot of snow for all my senior neighbors throughout the area, and I noticed footprints all through the snow, and I'm going, this lady doesn't have feet this big, you know? And I followed them, and I told the police, I said, so they followed the footprints to the back door of her apartment, one of her residents, and they found a whole cache of stuff that's been stolen all over town. They had another resident there who had a little scooter, was peddling meth all over
Yeah,
town.
I just a second. I think I'm being told here in my left ear that we're just a little off subject. We need
Okay.
You want to keep
Yeah.
to the application.
Okay.
Yes, please. Okay, thank you.
Now, the neighbor right across the street from me has a house. She now has 5 residents in it, okay? She asked me one day about putting a mobile home in her backyard. I said, no, they have bylaws against that. You cannot do that. She has 5 residents. This is opening up the door for this sort of thing, okay? And their yard's cleaned up now, but it was a hell of a mess prior, because the way things are. Houses like mobile homes, there's a mobile park. They want to go to Huron Heights, they can put a place there. It's designed for that, okay? But not for the town of Wayne. Okay?
Thank you very kindly.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Okay. And just stand up if I don't see if you've got your hand up, because I've got a lot of chairs and tables in front of me. Welcome to COVID-19 living.
How's it going tonight, guys?
Good, good. And your name before you start, if you don't mind?
Ryan McDougal.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if you guys let this go through, you'll see a lot more people trying to do this kind of thing, and there's nothing to stop me from grabbing a mobile home on Kijiji and just slamming it in my backyard and thinking it's okay. It's going to be an eyesore, and that property there only has the 2 windows coming out back, and that's like one of the rooms. You can't put another window in, so that's a no-go right there. I just think it's going to be a bad idea, and I just thought I would come up here and tell you that.
Thank you very much for your comments. And anyone else? Okay, not seeing any. Opportunity, this is 6.3.4, opportunity for question or comments from council members to Monica. Go ahead, Mr. Faulkner.
Through you, Reeve, to Monica. Has any of this project been passed by the building inspector? I don't know, Kurt's here. I was just curious when you're adding a structure onto an existing structure with multi-families in it, whether this is going to be open to the other structure? To be able to pass through from one or the other, and how do you add a new structure to an old multi-unit structure and comply with the fire codes, or the building fire codes? I just don't, with firewalls, and I've never seen any of that addressed and spoken to.
Thank you. Through Monica.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. I did consult with the fire chief and the building official. And in order for the addition to the mobile home to be used as an addition, it will have to meet the Ontario Building Code, and proper fire separation between units will have to be provided, and that goes along with the building permit approval. There is not an intent for it to be entered from the other units. It has its own entrance, and so it would be a private entrance to that unit, and it would not enter into other units.
Would the original structure then also have to be brought up to that code standard of the new structure?
Yes, like the connection between the 2 buildings has to be done with the proper firewall separation.
Well, I was just thinking about they have multi-units in the one that, in the house itself now, whether they would have to be brought up to code of the new structure to make it legal. I was just curious, I just don't know whether, I've never heard of this being done before, and I'm just curious if it's passed by the building inspector. Kurt's here, so I don't know whether he's still on our payroll for.
Kurt, can you give us an answer to that, or maybe we need the fire chief?
Yes, so the existing structure, the fire separation of the wall that joins the mobile home and the existing structure would have to be constructed as a fire separation from both sides. Now, when you get into the code and you're dealing with an existing structure, there's a term called compliance alternatives. You can go to a certain area of the code where it might require a 45-minute fire separation today, but if we use a CA or compliance alternative, it might drop it down to 30 minutes. You still need to meet the intent of the code. So yes, there would be existing work on the existing house as well as the end of the mobile home. And then we'd have to look at egress levels from the existing building as well as any window openings that would be adjacent to the mobile home. There's a lot of work, but at this point here, I was really only providing planning comments to the monitor for the presentation.
Thank you.
Other council members? Go ahead, Deputy Reeve Sight.
Thank you, Reed Bailey. I want to make it clear about my comments. So I completely respect the fact of Ms. Bailey's comments about rentals and needing additional housing in North Huron. This goes way beyond one unit. This goes way beyond North Huron's policies. This goes way beyond Huron County. The housing crisis that we're in today goes right up to the federal government and where we're at today. So, I mean, arguably, I can fathom in the sense that this is a good solution in the sense of marketability for Ms. Bailey as it relates to this unit. The issue that I have is it's obviously not feasible to build a permanent structure. Bricks and mortar or sticks and whatever. It's more economical to use a park model. I understand where we are today in the building conversation because obviously lumber is not cheap. Concrete is not cheap. Building materials are not cheap because of where we are in our economy today. Where I don't share the same displeasure with people on showing precedent, the issue I have is obviously on the way it's going to appear, not necessarily what the end result is, because again, your picture could be what it looks like, but it may not look like that. We have no real understanding of what that might look like at the end. Arguably, the concern that I have is durability. Is what this structure is that structure, when it's in place, going to be able to withstand 50 years, 70 years? Because my issue is that if it doesn't, and it has to it lands in the 10 or 15 year discussion, what do we do with those tenants when that becomes an issue? Now there's conversation about them having to move because you got to pull it out and change and a whole bunch of other things. So I don't know what the answer to that question is, but my comments is really in the sense of there's areas in Huron County that allow those park model homes, as there's been individuals that have mentioned here tonight. I want to make sure that I'm clear in this sense. People in the industries and surrounding us that are requiring employment, when they say they can't find a place in North Huron, well, that means they can't find a place in Morris Turnberry or Central Huron or within 30 minutes of where they work. It's not just a North Huron problem. It is a county-wide problem, it's a province-wide problem, it's a country-wide problem. So we as North Huron need to make decisions that are in the best interest of us as how we see these look and how we look at our municipality and such. So I completely understand the comments that have been made. I don't honestly, in my mind, based on what I've heard and based on what I've read and just my overall opinion of the project, I'm not in support of it just because of the park model discussion and the temporariness of it, that it may or may not be accurate. But that is my concern as to the durability and the longevity of these types of homes because of where they sit on an existing structure. That's really where I want to answer those questions and make those comments, Bailey.
Thank you very kindly. Anyone else at this time? We will proceed then. 6.3.5, zoning bylaw procedure following a public meeting.
You're kind of past that point.
We're a little past that point now.
It's your call as council.
Yeah. If council doesn't mind, is it okay if this gentleman speaks? Seeing no objection, yes, sir, go ahead. And your name, of course, first.
Tony Casimir. Just to let you know what the structure is. It's not a trailer. It's actual framed lumber, peaked roof, shingled, aluminum siding, just exactly what the house that's standing there now is made of. And it would be set on helical coils, welded to because there is a metal undercarriage to the unit, would be welded to that, hitch cut off, permanently set, skirted, and done. So it is actually a permanent, like the longevity is it's a shingled roof. I'm sure we'd have to replace the shingles, but that would be about it.
Thank you very kindly. Appreciate that. Okay, zoning bylaw 6.3.5, zoning bylaw procedure following a public meeting. This is a public meeting of the Council Township of North Huron. Thus, a decision of council may or may not be made this evening. If the bylaw is passed by council, the clerk is required to send notice of the passing of the bylaw to all persons and agencies notified of the public meeting. There is a 20-day objection period from the time the notice is passed of the bylaw has been mailed by first-class post, wherein submissions, letters, and objections or support in respect to the passing of the bylaw will be received by the clerk. If an objection is received, an appeal lodged with the Ontario Land Tribunal will be held, and at that point the township has no longer any control over the time factor involved. If council does not pass the bylaw, the applicant may appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If the bylaw is passed and no objections are received within the objection period, the clerk certifies that the bylaw is in force and of effect of the date of the passing of the notice is forwarded to the Huron County Planning and Development Department. 6.3.6, summary of comments and recommendation from the Huron County Planning Department, please.
Thank you once again, Reed Bailey. I'm just going to go down to the final slide of my presentation. Sure, thank you. It is the Planning Department's recommendation that the application for zoning bylaw amendment be denied. And following Council's decision, I can provide a recommendation on the effect of agency and public comments on that, on Council's decision.
Thank you very much, Monica. 6.3.7, the decision of council and effect of the comments received in council's decision. There are two motions on the floor, or you can make a motion of your own. Would anybody like to make a motion? Deputy Reeve Sight?
I would make the motion that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby denies the zoning bylaw amendment file Z05-2021 as it applies to Lot 13 and part lots 12 and 14, Registered Plan 420, Wingham, Township of North Huron, 290 Minnie Street.
Do I have a seconder? I have Kevin Faulkner seconding. Okay. Council's decision on this. Is everybody okay with that? Sorry.
You have to call.
I call a
All in
yeah.
favor.
Yeah, sorry. I'm getting there. All in favor? I knew there was something in there. Passes. Monica, your turn.
The decision has been to deny the application for rezoning. My recommendation is that you would use 6A and 6B of this chart. Concerns raised did influence the decision. Public comments were received on the issues of compatibility with surrounding residential, the effect of which influenced the decision of council to deny the application. Effective agency comments. Agency comments were received on the issue of design, the effect of which influenced the decision of council to deny the application.
Do I have a mover? I have Anita moving, seconder. I have Paul seconding. Call the vote. Carries. Thank you. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure, and thank you so much to council for the time that I've been your planner. It's been a really important part of my career, and I want to thank you for that opportunity.
We have had some fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have a good rest of your evening.
Yeah, we'll talk to you.
You all come back now, you hear?
Reports, clerk's report. Carson has 7.1.1, which is a customer service standard policy and complaint handling policy. Carson, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So in the interest of time, I'll keep this brief.
Thank you.
As Council is aware, in 2020, Council engaged KPMG to conduct a service delivery review. Out of that service delivery review were a number of recommendations, two of which were to adopt a formalized complaint process or policy. The second, to adopt an updated customer service policy. So attached to the staff report, Council will have found an updated customer service standards policy as well as a complaint handling policy. And by adopting these policies, North Huron will be implementing consistent and uniform processes to capitalize on identified service-based and process-based opportunities as noted in the KPMG service delivery review. So to prepare these policies, they were originally drafted by some of North Huron's frontline staff who work with the public on a daily basis. And then as part of this process, they were then presented to SMT, where we reviewed and provided comment to ensure that the policies were equally applicable across all departments. So the customer service standards policy, we do have one existing, however it's quite out of date, and it was included as part of the HR policy manual. As Council's aware, the HR manual is set to be repealed and replaced as part of this meeting tonight, so it increases the need to adopt a new customer service standards policy. The standards outlined in the document are certainly a reflection of best practices, as well as the township's commitment to providing exceptional service, enhancing communications with customers and staff, providing service excellence at all levels within the township, focusing on the key drivers to customer satisfaction, and of course aligning with the township's corporate values as noted in the 2020 to 2023 strategic plan adopted by council. The customer service standards policy deals with a number of different communication channels, from in-person interactions, telephone and voicemail, email and correspondence, and social media. The bulk of the processes included in these policies are already implemented and utilized by North Huron staff, but this policy formalizes these practices for the benefit of both North Huron staff and the public, and will certainly be a useful tool for when we onboard new employees, as it will serve as a resource for those employees. As for the complaints policy, this provides certainly a uniform and consistent process for our complaints, regardless of where those complaints are stemming from, and certainly builds off the changes we've made to date. It coordinates the resident complaints within one department, so all complaints are channeled through the clerk's department, and regardless of whether that complaint is submitted in person, by mail, by email to our complaints at North Huron email address, or electronically through our new North Huron website, it's all channeled through that same process, and ensures that tracking and follow-up is occurring so that you're not going to see any complaints kind of get lost in the process, which was the recommendation from KPMG. So again, with that one, certainly something that we've implemented a little while back now. Overall, the process seems to be working really well, and these policies formalize those processes.
Thank you, Carson. Do I have a mover for customer service standard policy and complaint handling policy? I have Kevin Faulkner moving. I have Paul Heffer seconding. Questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead, Trevor.
Reeve, I just have one question, or maybe even a comment, as from relating to more of the complaint handling policy than the customer service standards, is I think it would be beneficial for council to understand on a quarterly basis or a semi-annual or some process as to the follow-up of what the top 5 complaints or issues that the municipality has, if it's relating to policy-driven stuff. Because I mean, arguably the issue becomes is if we've debated a policy and somebody's pissed off about it, how might we make a change to that policy if we never know there was a complaint? And I mean, sometimes the issue is that we don't hear about it until it's already been implemented, and the issue is once you implement it now, you have to wait a year to change it. So I mean, arguably the issue has always been, because I hear this all the time from residents, well, it seems like by the time you make the change to the policy, I haven't heard it or I haven't heard about it, and now you've made the claim, you made the change, and now I can't do anything about it. Well, arguably, I understand their complaint, I understand their issue. However, you know, we have to understand as council what those complaints may be, and maybe the clerk can help answer that question as it relates to how that's going to be communicated back to council.
So through your worship, to provide some clarity to Deputy Reeve Sipes' question, and I apologize, I should have mentioned that during the presentation. So the complaint handling policy only deals with complaints of an operational nature. So in this, my activity reports to council, which I provide quarterly, you will have seen those complaints based on the departmental complaints, what they're related to, and certainly those are all of an operational nature. And any complaints regarding policy or requesting a change to existing policy are still dealt with through the formal submission of a letter to council, and that's provided through submission to myself and then included on the council agenda, and that's also specified in the policy. So it certainly specifies that if you're complaining about something of a policy nature or requesting a change to existing policy, your mechanism is through a formal letter to council, so that there is no delay in that feedback getting to council. And certainly if we as staff realized that a complaint submission was something of a policy nature, our follow-up with that individual would be, this is actually something you're requesting a policy change. Your mechanism is to provide this information in a letter to council. So certainly a good point to get across, Deputy Reeve Sipes, but the difference between operational complaints versus complaints of a policy nature.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? I have a mover and a seconder. How do we vote? All in favor? Carries. Donna is next, 7.2.1, and this is the 357 tax refunds. While Donna's making her way up, can I have a mover? Kevin's moving, seconder. I need a second. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Gabrielle. So for this evening and as time to time, council receives applications under section 357 of the Municipal Act to request a refund from taxation. And the 3 applications that we have received under consideration this evening relate to the demolition of a house, a farm building, and a shed. So the applications were sent to MPAC for review, and they were returned with a recommended assessment adjustment. And council is required to hold a public meeting to hear these applications, and notification of this meeting was sent to the application, or to the applicants, and advising them that staff were recommending that the applications be approved. So the total amount for refunds for these demolition of these buildings is a total of $2,838.95. And council does budget annually for write-offs such as this and other write-offs, and so to date, our of this amount, our share is $1,777.96, and so far to date, we've only had 117 approved under this account. There'll be more to come, of course, before year end. So, is there any questions in this? Oh, I'm sorry. One thing I was supposed to mention was that if any of the applicants who submitted these 357 applications are in attendance this evening, I don't know all of these folks, so if there was anyone in attendance and they did wish to speak to their application, they are to be given the opportunity to do so.
Is there anyone in the audience? Yell out if there is. Not hearing any yelling. That's always a good sign. Okay, I have movers. All in favor? Carries. Thank you, Donna. Donna's going to move on now to the Wingham Area Health Professional Recruitment Transfer from Reserves.
Yes, thank you. So as Councillor Anita had advised earlier, we are very fortunate to have a new doctor in place. And some time ago, the physician recruitment professionals group did refund over $20,000 to the member municipalities to hold in reserves until such time that the recruitment incentive was needed. And so that amount, we have received a request for $13,300. That will leave $7,200 in our reserves for the next time that a physician recruitment initiative comes along. And so I'm recommending that that amount be taken out of reserves. There's no effect on taxation, and in order to provide this funding back to the recruitment team.
Thank you, Donna. Do I have a mover? I have Anita moving. I have Kevin seconding. Questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Carries.
Thank you.
7.3 is the next one, and that is community services.
And we're going to defer Vicky's report.
We're going to defer this because one of our staff is not here tonight, so this has been deferred.
Yeah, so I have a motion here.
Okay.
So the motion would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the Director of Recreation and Community Services dated September 7th, 2021 regarding the staffing levels at the recreational facilities for information purposes, and further that Council hereby defers staff report RC 2021-15 until the September 20th, 2021 regular council meeting.
Do I have a mover? I have Paul moving, Trevor seconding. All in favor? Carries. There is no public works reports, there's no fire department reports, no building department reports. Down to 7.7.1, and this is the new human resources policies and procedures. And Dwayne, would you like to speak to this one?
Thanks, Your Worship. So the Township's human resource policies and procedures were originally approved in 2009. We have made some amendments to them over the years to address some issues, but we haven't done a full comprehensive review, and that was long overdue. So as authorized by Council, Warden Updegrove, HR consulting firm, was retained to prepare a draft human resource manual, and working in collaboration with the CAO and our senior management team, Warden Updegrove presented a first draft of the manual to Council earlier this year in closed session. Council provided input and feedback on that manual and agreed to have the manual reviewed by the Township's HR lawyer. The review by the lawyer was completed, and a final draft, which incorporated Council's input and feedback, has been prepared for Council's consideration. So in terms of some of the key changes from our existing human resource policies and procedures and the proposed new manual, I'll just highlight those briefly. Language was revised to achieve compliance with current provincial legislation. Employee classifications were created to assist in determining employee compensation packages. Legacy shared service policies for the Public Works Department have been eliminated for the purposes of ensuring all staff are treated fairly and consistently. Current legal requirements have been captured in the new policies and procedures. Core policies for all departments were developed, but in doing so, we created some flexibility to allow for different departmental operational variations. Several policies were combined and sections were reorganized. A number of health and safety policies and procedures were removed, and those policies and procedures are going to be added to the Township's Health and Safety Manual. Policies in violation of provincial legislation were removed. New policies were added to address a number of factors, including driver license requirements and suspensions, impairment at work, early and safe return to work, remote work, work from home, pandemic protocol, just to name a few. A notable new policy added speaks to a transition and grace period for any employee disadvantaged by the adoption of these new policies and procedures. The transition and grace period is defined as 12 months from the effective date of the new manual. Vacation entitlements have been adjusted to allow staff vacation earlier in their careers when their families are young, with a reduced maximum vacation time allotment later in their careers. And the vacation policy has also been revised to state that North Huron's firefighters are entitled to vacation pay. In terms of the effective date of the new human resource policies and procedures, in the report it does indicate a recommended date of September 1st of 2021. That was based on a council meeting of September the 7th. Now that we're halfway through September, it's recommended that we adjust that effective date to October 1st of 2021, but still maintain the 12-month transition and grace period. And the transition and grace period is primarily for our public works staff who will be affected by the elimination of that legacy shared services policy. There will be some direct and indirect, I refer to, from financial impacts from the new policies and procedures. In particular, we were advised that firefighters are entitled to vacation pay. So in addition to receiving vacation pay on a go-forward basis, the legal advice we received suggested that consideration be given to 2 years of retro vacation pay for the firefighters. And for the period of September 1st, 2019 to August 31st of 2021, staff have calculated that to be approximately $22,000. It was originally expected that the payout could be absorbed within the 2021 fire department budget, but we've had some unexpected vehicle maintenance costs. And as such, it is still possible in terms of we can proceed with this payout with no impact on taxation, but we will be seeking council's approval to withdraw some funds from the fire department's accumulated operating reserve account. With respect to the elimination of the legacy shared service policies, again, these are simply estimates, but looking at the 2019 and 2020 payroll information, it's projected that this policy change is going to result in a savings of approximately $5,500, so no increase to taxation. In terms of the proposed policy changes to the vacation policy, these are going to have minimal impact on municipalities' budget. The changes do result in some employees receiving an additional week of paid vacation. However, the individuals who are going to receive that additional week, it really isn't an additional cost to the municipality. What it is what I refer to as lost time. And that lost time, if you want to equate that to a financial figure, is approximately $9,000. However, from HR consultant, the lawyer, and senior staff's opinion, we feel that the recommended policy change will keep North Huron as an attractive and competitive employer, while at the same time strikes a balance between the needs of new younger staff and the township's limited financial resources. And maybe just on a final note, I'll just highlight that in 2017 we completed a pay equity exercise. It was undertaken in 2017, implemented in 2018. These exercises are typically done every 4 to 5 years. So as part of the 2022 budget process, we will be asking council for consideration of undertaking the pay equity exercise in 2022. with an implementation date, however, 2023, to allow us to plan accordingly with respect to any potential financial impact that may result.
Thank you very much, Dwayne. Do you have a mover?
Here, I'll read the amendment.
You want to go first? Okay.
So as the CAO indicated, there are some recommendations to be amended to that motion that was circulated on the council agenda. So the motion would read now that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report prepared by the CAO dated September 7th, 2021 regarding new human resources policies and procedures, and further that Council adopts Bylaw number 68, 2021, being a bylaw approving new human resources policies and procedures as outlined in the manual, and further that Council approves October 1st, 2021 as the effective date for the new human resource policies and procedures, and further that Council considers the adoption of the new human resource manual to be an administrative matter and grants an exception to section 19.1 of the procedure bylaw, allowing bylaw number 68, 2021 to be passed at the regular the September 13th, 2021 regular meeting, and further that Council directs staff to notify the municipality of Morris Turnberry, the municipality of Central Huron, and the township of Ashfield, Colborne, Wawanosh of the increased fire department operating costs and their share of the retro vacation pay for firefighters.
Do I have a mover? Rick moves. Seconder. Trevor seconds. Questions, comments, concerns? Not seeing any. I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Thank you. 8.1 Blythe BIA Board request for North Huron to review road and infrastructure names. Does anybody want to speak to this one? Would anybody like to? Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Reed. I have two comments to make. One being see out the audience that no one from the Blythe BIA has shown up today to put any onus towards this motion or further discussion. Secondly, I want to reiterate that, as I mentioned in the previous council meetings, I believe that the Blythe BIA mandate puts this out of the realm of their control or their scope of what their business is supposed to be doing through a BIA. And I take great trepidation in even being here to talk about this when they won't come out here and help explain what they were doing. I was under the impression that there was going to be a meeting with the BIA to outline their rules and responsibilities, but that hasn't happened yet, as there's been quite a few exceptions taken. So I'm kind of dismayed by this whole process that through an action by a board of council circumventing the rights and responsibilities of the citizens of our municipality in such a way and through the paper has caused a great deal of discomfort amongst and has initiated a process where people have had to band together and petition something that hasn't even been brought towards council in the first place for discussion or debate. I hate to use the word, but underhanded. I just don't like the way that this has come through to us. So that's all my comments I had. Thank you.
Thank you very kindly.
I can provide a status update on the BIA constitutions just for the benefit of council.
Now,
Yeah, I can do it right now.
actually, Kevin, he's going to give us an update on theirs.
And Councillor Falconer's aware of this. He's been CC'd on a number of stuff, but for the benefit of council. So we are in the process of certainly updating the BIA constitutions, and then myself, the Director of Finance, and the CAO, we're planning for the Blythe BIA's meeting on August 26th to attend to have that discussion with them of what their mandate actually is, because Councillor Falconer has certainly hit the nail on the head there. However, things have been pushed slightly due to staffing and recruitment. limitations right now, and I mean, I have one staff in my department who's certainly doing two jobs right now until we can fill that, but it's certainly on our radar, and certainly a project that we're working on, so for the benefit of the BIAs soon you will see something on them, kind of reminding them what their mandate is.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Go ahead, Deputy Reeve.
Yes, thank you, Reeve. You know, I want to make it very clear in my sense of where I see the municipality's positions should be on these particular instances. We're a municipality that has history. Some bad, some good. The conversation about history to not only the current population of North Huron, but the future of North Huron should be talked about. And when I say talked about, I say in the contents of correcting inappropriate or demeaning or whatever the contents is of our history. Not erasing it, but talking about it. To learn what we are as a municipality and as a country or as a province. One of the things that I have 2 small young children, and this has resonated fairly significantly with me over the last week to 10 days. When my daughters ask me questions about derogatory names, I'm not going to use them, but I'm just going to say of those things. It's my position as a parent to talk about it and teach my kid what is good and not good about using those words. Those words are around us every day. I can't change it. What I can do is teach people about the use of that word in the context of whether it was made back in 1945 or whatever year it was associated to the time. The village of Blythe obviously thought it was of an importance to change a name from Wilson Street to Gypsy Lane. And I'm using that name because that's what the name is of it currently right now. Nobody today can condone what they did as a failure to the municipality or the town of Blythe, because in that day and age, that was okay. Is it okay today? We have people on both sides of the equation. Some say no, some say yes. I'm not here to say whether it's a good yes or a no. But what I am here to say is that we need to start looking at the history of our municipality and start talking about its failures or its goods. And not necessarily change it, but talk about it. Those are the things that are going to make us better people and a better municipality. Not erasing it. Because let me be very clear, is the people that live on Gypsy Lane, I don't care if you call it Bob Street or Frank Street. The people that live there will call it Gypsy Lane, because that's what they know. I mean, whether it's right or not, in my mind, is history. You develop your history on whether you think it's right or it's wrong. We should not change our thought process just because another municipality or the city of Toronto wants to choose their rail. Because I'll tell you right now, there's a lot of discussion that we've had that we would rather not have any discussion about what Toronto does, because Toronto is a city and we're not a city. So we have become and I don't want this to be derogatory at all, but we have become a country and a province and a municipality and a people of trying to erase what we are. And not accepting the fact that we have failures. We do things that are wrong. We apologize for our mistakes. But I can't apologize for a municipality back in the town of Blythe to make that name, because they believed it was something of value at that time. And in our package, we received the history of why that name is. There's lots of names and derogatories and slangs that are used in the English language. That's fact. It's how you treat that information as the way it is. And instead of being imposing of it and feeling disrespected about using that word, we should talk about what that word means and make sure the history of it. That's, to me, what we should be doing. Because, as we've noticed here tonight, there's a lot of people that have said it doesn't matter what name you put to a word or a street or whatever, people will find some way to think it is derogatory or not complacent or not right. So let's just start talking about our history in not a negative tone, but let's learn from our history. And I mean, from my perspective, when we talk about what the options and the impacts and stuff, my position is not necessarily any change in this particular name. It's let's make sure that our naming policy today talks about that in a context. Derogatory, slang, those types of things. As Nathaniel talked about, you wouldn't name a street gay or whatever that case may be. But let's talk about what that naming convention is, make sure there's policies and there's checks and balances in that to make sure we're good. But we are never going to solve the question of whether that name today is going to be accepted 50 years from now. If you think you're going to do that, by all means. So that's why, and that's my comments, Reed Bailey, is I think we have become complacent in the sense we want to change and erase our history, and I don't think that's the right idea. That's not the right motion that we should be making, in my mind. I think we need to be talking about our policies, our naming convention policies, in the sense that making sure they have checks and balances in place. But that's about it, in my mind.
Anita, go ahead.
Yeah, what used to be an endearing term is now known to offend large groups of population. I think as a municipal government, we are obligated to take concerns seriously. We have to recognize the dignity and worth of every citizen, every person. Many of the roads and parks in our towns were named when settlers came to this area, and what used to be acceptable might not be appropriate anymore. I would suggest to defer this request and forward it to the county for a countywide review, because it's coming up in all the communities around us, and it's starting to get a human rights issue right now.
So I have a motion on the floor to defer it. Before I ask for a seconder, does anybody else want to speak out? I'm going to speak out.
Reeve, I just want to make sure I understand. So the motion on the floor from Councillor Van Henderson is to defer it to the county.
Yes.
That's the motion that you're requesting. So not defer it to our staff.
No.
Defer this to right to the county for their input.
And if I may, Your Worship, to provide clarity, I might remove the word defer, and basically it would be something along the lines of that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to forward the request to the county for a county-wide review of road and infrastructure names.
Yeah, sounds good.
So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey. As you know, let me read it to you again. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory. So I did work with Aboriginal people with this, and so did our staff. I always took the attitude that I'm a person, you're a person. I don't care if you're black or white, tall, fat. It didn't matter to me. We're just good people or bad people, and you can become one or the other and change around. Through this journey, I did learn, though, that I'm wrong. There was wrong done to the Aboriginal people. And councils way back when buried it. And I mean literally buried it. Didn't want to talk about it, wanted to hide it. Now, as the journey comes forward, we realize that we should have been talking about it 60 years ago and 50 years ago. We should have been doing something about it. So I don't think it should be buried either. I think it should be acknowledged as a mistake. And I think we should move forward. So I am more than willing to take it to county council and see what we can do, because this is bigger than all of us. But no, I don't think we should send it to our staff. Did you have a do we have a seconder for her?
No, you don't, your worship.
Can I get a seconder?
Are we going to inject more into this?
No, this is
Past the public comment period.
yeah, we're way past the public comment period.
But just to clarify, so with Councillor Van Henderson's motion, it would be a review that the county conducts, and if there were recommended changes, it's the township's roads and infrastructure. So the county can't unilaterally make those changes, but they could certainly provide recommendations back to the township should they be willing to take on that review on behalf of the lower tier municipalities.
So I'll ask a third and last time, is there a seconder? Not seeing any, the motion fails. Okay. Going to 8.2, North Perth Huron Family Health Team, request for representative. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby recommend Anita Van Henderson as a municipal representative to the North Perth North Huron Family Health Team Board. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin moving. Do I have a seconder? I have Rick seconding. All in favor? Congratulations, Anita.
Well,
It was unanimous, by the way.
yeah, but still, there's still more people on the list, so we can probably, or is
And
this?
so, for clarity, we included the motions from the other municipalities that we've received. Huron Kinloss did support Councillor Van Henderson, and Councillor Abbott removed her name. So Huron Kinloss has voted in favor, and so is Ashley Coleman Wawanosh. So with us being the third, I believe that's 3 out of 5. So
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. 8.3, request to reclaim October 21st, 2021, a child care worker and early childhood educator appreciation day. Do I have a mover? Trevor moving, seconding. Anyone say? I have Kevin seconding. All in favor? Carries. 8.4, Dr. Christine Wildun and, forgive me, Hygiene Young. Wilden McKenzie, optometrist, request for a motion to support the optometry fund for reforms. Do I have a mover?
there's no motion, your worship. If council wanted to support that, you would have to craft the motion.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody want to support that? Oh, Trevor does.
Sorry, Reeve, I just want to make a motion or mention that, based on my understanding of what this is that as of September 1st, anybody under the age of 18, or anybody actually, that is not paying they cannot actually go to the optometrist, period. So you can't go and make the payment, because if you're OHIP carrying resident of Ontario, and they will ask you, I'm assuming that when you call for the appointment with optometrist, they will probably cancel your appointment. So what I'm hearing is that is an issue that the Ontario government is going to have to solve sooner rather than later. Let me be clear. I want to support fair and equitable funding. That is what I hope to gain out of this deal. Whether that is a change or an advancement in funding, or the province wants to talk about it, right now it doesn't sound like anybody's talking. And I think that's the issue that I have from the Deputy Reeves chair is, you know, this is a 30-year problem that has just never been talked about, and now it needs to be talked about severely because the optometrists of Ontario have decided that we can't provide this service at the price we're willing to pay for it. So I'm willing to recommend sending a letter of support to the optometrists in order to get them to talk and understand a fair and equitable funding for their model. So that's what my motion would be.
Seconder to that motion? Rick seconds that. Are we good with what he said, Carson? All in favor? Carries. Oh, sorry. All in favor? Carries. I just wasn't sure I had it there or not.
Could you see well?
I spoke a little too soon there. 8.5, Richard.
Councillor Heffer with a question.
Oh, sorry, Paul.
Sorry, through you, Reeve. Are we to be getting into this type of stuff, though?
For support, absolutely. As leaders of the community, you do need to make decisions and choices. I mean, it's to each and everybody. They can do what they want.
So where do you make that dividing line that maybe, no, we aren't going to do this one, but we're going to do that one? Just curious.
I make mine based on how it helps the communities around me, my community and communities around me. That's how it helps my fellow man. Go ahead, Trevor.
But I mean, Councillor you're absolutely right. It's on a case by case basis. And for the most part, most of these communities, you will find, as we've seen over the last 5 months, you've been asked for support as relates to the closure of the Ontario Fire College. We've been asked about doing other things to support, Huron County's position or whatever. Whatever these features are, these are changes or effects that affect your resident. And I mean, is that a service that we as the municipality provide? No. But what we do is we do provide it because it's in our municipality, and if we choose not to support them, maybe they'll find some other way to get support from. I mean, that's the question that you're asking. I agree when your comment is it really our service to deal with? You're right, it's not. We can't deal with that, but we need to in all instances, we need to pick a side at some point to get the Ontario government sometimes to even listen. And that's really the ultimate discussion, is that when we make these comments, sometimes there's comments in numbers. And if they see more comments by more people and more municipalities that are concerned about this, they may take a higher level of importance to it than just the optometrists of Ontario deciding that they are not funded properly.
But my question is, so we have an optometrist just up the block here.
Yep.
And they didn't come to us, or are they tied together? Maybe they're tied together, maybe. I'm not sure on that.
So I will say to you right now, the optometrists of Ontario are all banded together in this particular case. This is a funding that has come from some request for a motion. The issue is that you're absolutely correct. And the reason why probably you won't see a lot of the other optometrists come to municipal council, because they don't know we have any input or any potential pressure that we can give to the province. They're thinking they're on their own because, as well as you do, Councillor Heffer, we got bigger fish to fry, right? Mm-hmm. And we've got other problems like DC charges and other issues that we have in a municipality, not necessarily worrying about what the optometrist up the street's going to charge me for an eye appointment, right? That's not really our position. So.
And I do apologize for saying those names improperly. I'm sure I did. Moving along now, we did that one, didn't we? 8.5, Richard Scrimmacher, request to hold cemetery on the Blythe Greenway Trail September 11th, 2021. Do I have a mover? Paul moving. Do I have a seconder? I have Mr. McBurney seconding. Questions, comments, concerns? Not seeing any. All in favor?
Reeve,
go ahead.
I think for the people who are watching or listening, this is obviously before today.
Okay.
So, council was sent a message because of the cancellation
Of the meeting.
of the meeting. We individually got this request. We did not have a conversation, no communication was made. We individually supported or denied it, and staff went with regards to those policies or those requests. That's what they made their motion on. This is just clearing up a recommendation that needs to be on the council books. So I mean, just from the public's perspective, we need to understand that yes, it's the 13th and we're asking for the 11th. Council members individually were aware of this event and either provided support or did not. I can tell you I ultimately provided support, but that's mine. I'm not going to suggest everybody else was any different. But that's for the public's purpose. I think it's important to tell them how we made that decision, because arguably the argument will be saying, oh, you made it, had a meeting without a meeting.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the conversation, but that's not what happened.
I do appreciate that, Deputy Reeve Sipes. You're absolutely right. And you did an eloquent job of explaining it. So we're going to go down to 8.6. Ellen Smith, Crookshank, Wingham, and District Horticulture Society expressed an interest to donate to the Crookshank Park improvements. Do I have a mover? I have Paul moving, a seconder. I have Trevor seconding. Questions, comments, or concerns? Not seeing any. I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Reeves report. Well, actually, I didn't make a report up today. It's just been one of those days. So that's going to be a quick one. It won't happen twice this year. Council member reports, verbal and written updates from members who sit on boards or committees. Would anybody like to speak to anything? Not seeing anyone. Comments by members. Is there any comments by members? Go ahead, Rick.
To Reeve, in regards to that, there's a study on it, County Road 4 and County Road 25. September 20th is the deadline for comments on that website, just so people are aware if you want to put comments in.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I forgot. Yes. So we're getting the far end of Blythe, whether it's a roundabout or lights, or looking at it. They need to do a lot of work on it, and they want input from citizens and from council members. So as rare as it is to find anything happening that far north, I would appreciate support from all council members to send in their recommendation to do something about that corner, and anybody you talk to. And thank you very much, Mr. McBurney, for bringing that up. I did forget about that. And I believe I sent it off to Dwayne, and he sent it off to everybody he could think of. We need to send in. We need something done there. Enough carnage. Go ahead, Dwayne.
Your Worship, yeah, so in terms of the September 20th deadline, staff are in the process. We're going to provide some technical comments, and actually there's been a reach out to organize a meeting to have a discussion by staff of the municipalities. So there's that comment, and then in terms of further to that, the Director of Public Works, in terms of bringing forward a report for our next council meeting for the 20th. As you've noted, the deadline is September the 20th, but we have spoken with actually Lisa, who's with us tonight, and she said that if we need some additional time, we can have some additional time to provide some comments. So if council so wishes, Jamie, Director, will bring forward a report for council.
That would be
appreciation if that would be of benefit and of interest to council.
Yep. Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, I think that would be beneficial, at least to understand where all of our positions are, and like what the conversations are being had. I would ask staff to maybe send that link to that email to where where we need to submit those information if you want individual comments from members of the council. I don't recall seeing anything, and I don't recall if it's on the county website or what. This is the first time I actually seen it yesterday as I was driving to Lonsboro, or actually Bayfield, and I went through Blythe and actually seen the sign that says consultation, and I'm like, okay, now what? So I mean, if staff has an email address or something that we can provide, that we can go to a website, if it's on the county website, that's all I need to know, and I'll just find it on the county, but I would prefer something more direct than me having to search the county website.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate that, Deputy Reeves. I actually read it in the paper and got a hold of Dwayne and said, I haven't heard anything about this. So that's how we found out. Okay. Oh, I'm running the meeting. What's that? Yes, Kevin.
Over some comments or whatever. I'd like to give two congratulations, shout outs to two organizations in Blythe that have found ways to go ahead and put on some kind of a normality during these times of different changing COVID restrictions. First of all, the baseball tournament that was in Blythe a couple of weeks ago, it was well attended. I went through on Friday night and I counted 36 trailers that were camped there of responsible people coming to a baseball tournament and staying there. And on Saturday I drove through and there was 54. So that campground's being used. This past weekend, the Thrashers Association did a drive-by of the Thrashers. From what I can tell by the traffic through town and what was going on at the Thrashers, that it was well received and amazing what you can do when you put your mind to it, when you have to change things and still want to bring people together. I could hear the music and some fiddles playing at the campgrounds well into the night. So I want to congratulate both those organizations for helping our municipality find ways of doing what we normally would do. And I congratulate them.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Go
ahead, Trevor.
I just want to make one comment about tonight's meeting. That tonight is what democracy is all about. I mean, we had people who were very passionate about a cause or a situation that they have invested themselves in the time and effort to come here and talk to us as council. And I say this now as they're all not here. However, I mean, arguably, this is the type of stuff that, these are decisions that we need to make or not make, depending on what we choose to do. However, these are people who have taken the time and effort to do that. And I think ultimately I respect the fact that they've put the effort in. Whether they accept the decision of not of council, they've chosen to come and be passionate about what they think is in the right interest of them and the community. And I think that is what is going to give us an edge as we go through getting back to whatever normal is anymore. I mean, that's the conversation that we have to have. We have progressed a significant amount in this municipality over the last 3.5 years. I mean, but the reason we've done that is because of people like that have put effort and time and they're passionate about North Huron. And I mean, it would be a different story if they weren't. And that's the thing I think I want to just commend those people, regardless of what their position is. They're taking an effort and time and I mean, that's the part of democracy that we have to succeed in and accepting of it. And we're getting the full rally when we have a federal election in a week. So I mean, this is the conversation that we have to have as a municipality. But those types of things tonight, and people having their opinion, and we respect to answer it, following under the guidelines that we have, I think is the right idea that we need to continue to have and make sure people are heard before a council makes a decision, because I think it's important that we have public input before any decision is made.
Hear, hear. Anyone else? Go ahead, Paul.
Yes, through you, Reeve. I just want to reiterate the Horticultural Society, they met, and again, like it's an aging people, but it was mentioned just a moment ago about the pride people have in North Huron, and it was demonstrated. Those older people, they work up at the Crookshank Park, and now they see where somebody's investing back a family that's out of town. It's just great to see that.
It is true. Okay. We have no motions tonight. Bylaws. We have bylaw number 68, 2021. Do I have a mover? I have Paul moving. Do I have a seconder? I have Kevin and seconding. All in favor? Carries. Bylaw number 69-2021, Transfer Payment Agreement, Municipality Modernization Program intake number 2. Do I have a mover? Rick McBurney moves. Anita seconds. All in favor? Carries.
So I have a motion for this one.
Number 11.3, we have a new motion.
So because council approved a motion to deny the zoning bylaw amendment application, the draft motion would be that the council of the Township of North Huron hereby withdraws bylaw number 70, 2021, as the zoning bylaw amendment application was denied as part of agenda item 6.3.7.
Do I have a mover?
So move.
Trevor moves, seconder is Paul. All in favor? Carries. Okay. The next regular council meeting will be held on Monday, September 20th, 1 week from now, 2021 at 6 p.m. right here in the Town Hall. The next Economic Development and Recovery Committee meeting will be held on Thursday, September 16th at 2 p.m. here in the Town Hall. The next North Huron Police Services Board meeting will be held on Tuesday, September 21st, and it'll be here in the Town Hall Theater. The next Wingham BIA Board meeting will be held Thursday at the Hot Stove Lounge in Thursday the 23rd at 6:30 at the Hot Stove Lounge in the West Cass Community Complex. The next BIA Board meeting will be held on Thursday, September 30th, 2021 at 8 a.m. in the Blythe District Community Center. Other business? We have none. Closed to session report. We do not have any. Confirmatory bylaw. Go too fast, we did.
I will move confirmatory
Oh.
bylaw, Reeve.
We have a mover, Trevor, seconder. Ricky, all in favor? Carries. Adjournment, that the Council Township of North Huron agrees that it being no further business before the council meeting hereby adjourns at 8:56 p.m. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin moving, Paul seconding, all in favor? Carries. Thank you, everyone.